And welcome to this edition of Baseball Essential, everybody. My name is Gershon Rabinowitz. We are here at Citi Field for the Baltimore Orioles and the New York Mets, and we're joined by a very special guest, a man from Bangor, Maine. Is called the NHL, is called Major League Baseball, currently the voice of the Baltimore Orioles, Gary Thorne, and it's an honor to have you on the show.
Pleasure. Nice to be with you.
Nice to be with you, Gary. So, as I mentioned, you're from Bangor, Maine. How did you become a broadcaster, and when did you decide that that's what you wanted to do with your career?
Well, I started this in high school, working as a disc jockey and news and about every other thing you can do in the business, and then ended up doing high school and college sports. And I mean, I'm also an attorney, and I didn't think I was going to do this for a business until the Mets came along back in '85 when I was doing some AAA work for a club I was a part owner in, and the Mets made one of those offers you can't refuse, and here I am.
With the Mets, you were working with Bob Murphy at the time. It was around the time that the Mets, the '85 season when they got Gary Carter, and then '86 when they won World Series. What was that like covering the New York Mets at that time when they were on the rise and they were the team that beat in New York?
Well, it was a great time, especially the '86 season. I mean, it was a great year. It was a great group of players, wonderful management people. Frank Cashin was the GM. You couldn't ask for a nicer guy to be working with in that regard. And it was just great baseball. There were great rivalries, especially with the Cardinals, and we had a heck of a year. I mean, they played tremendous baseball, and then get into that postseason. The Houston series was as good as it gets, and then you go to the Boston series and the Mookie ground ball and all that went with it. It was really fun. It was a great ride. And
you were covering them on and off up until about 2002 or so. It was a great time for you. You also did a lot of national work, started doing, I think, for ESPN and some other sports. What's the difference between calling a game nationally and locally? And is the preparation anything different?
It is different because when you're doing the games locally, you've got a fan base that clearly knows a good deal about the ball club already, and probably the opposing team too. And so you're a little more detail. You're doing more detail work. You're doing more up-to-date work on what's going on with the ball club on this particular day. When you're doing the national broadcast, you can't assume that the audience knows the teams. So you really have to go back to basics on who the players are, what they're doing, current situation with the ball club. So that's different. That's different in preparation.
I mentioned about you covering the Mets for about 15, 20 years or so. What memories do you have at Shea Stadium, or when you come back to New York, whether you're calling, let's say you're calling a game against the Yankees or a game against the Mets, what memories rush through your mind?
Well, it's always the '86 season because that was such a great championship year. The World Series and the playoffs with Houston that I mentioned always come back to mind. The crowds here, I mean, at Shea Stadium, we had 55, 56,000 for those games, and I mean, the stadium literally moved. It was rocking, and you could feel it for those World Series games here at home. And it was just great fun. I mean, we got very close to the players who were on that team. It was a family-type atmosphere, even for the broadcasters, I think. And so it was a really enjoyable season, and Davey Johnson had a lot to do with that because he treated those who worked with the ball club and the players as one, and so you really got the feeling like you were part of something.
And it's very similar now with the Baltimore Orioles. I mean, you were there when they started in 2008 or so. They were pretty much rock bottom. Buck Showalter comes in 2010, has that great finish, and then the Orioles make 2 playoff appearances. Last year they win the division. Can you talk a little bit about the transformation that Buck Showalter has made with this Oriole ball club?
Well, he's made the entire difference, and it's a mental position with both with the players and with the fans. Losing wasn't acceptable. 14 years of losing, that was it. If you came to this ball club and you had that attitude as a player, you weren't going to stay here. There were things that had to be done. The little things about the game had to be taken seriously. And he didn't. It was just a no-nonsense approach that Buck has. You don't want to do this stuff, then you go somewhere else. You be sent out, or you get down, or you get traded. And you end up with a group of players who have a common goal, a common sense about how to play the game. And that's been the mental adjustment. That you got to have the talent. You got to go out and get the people who can play, but that mental adjustment's necessary, or you're not going to win.
You just mentioned about the mental adjustment. The Baltimore Orioles, as you know, with their schedule in the wake of the Baltimore riots, they had to play a game with no fans. They had to play 3 home games in Tampa Bay. Now they're on the road. Can you talk a little bit about just the adjustments that the team had to make, and also covering a game with no fans and covering just that type of event and everything that's transpired over the last week or so there?
Yeah, well, I mean, Buck's word to the ball club has been there's a lot of serious stuff going on in the city that's been there a while, and it's going to take a while to get taken care of. What you've got to concentrate on as players is what he's told them is the game. focus on the game as we always do, and you'll be okay. And then we can take care of the other things when we get the game done. So that's what they've done. And he's a no-excuse guy, so the fact they had to play in an empty ballpark or play home games in Tampa, I mean, he just, as he always does, he simply says, nobody cares. The game's still got to be played, so go play them. I don't want to hear any whining. I don't want to hear any moaning. I don't want to hear any excuses about it. And the guys respond to that, I think. And wherever the game's being played, whatever the circumstances, they focus on that game and trying to get a W put up and then take care of other things later.
And final question, what players have surprised you this season in Baltimore? And what do you think the team needs to improve upon just over 500 this early in the season?
Well, they've struggled with the starting pitching early. That's coming around, though. That's always going to be a primary concern. So they need consistency among the starters. The bullpen, which was exceptional last year, has been a little shaky, trying to get its roles defined. So that's got to be corrected, and I think it has been already. Those are the two things that got to be done. The Orioles will have offense. They'll score runs. They've got players to do that. And then you got to get healthy. You got to get Matt Wieters back behind the plate. Even though Caleb Joseph has been fantastic. You need J.J. Hardy at shortstop. You need Ryan Flaherty back, either playing second or backing it up. So it's just like everybody else, like the Mets, like everybody. You can't play with guys who aren't everyday players. So you get those things taken care of, you're going to win some games.
Yeah, with the guys in the lap, they need more consistency. Adam Jones and, as you mentioned, Caleb Joseph, they have been on fire. They've been unbelievable offensively. You need to have some of the guys pick it up. And Gary, it's been an honor to have you on. Have a great broadcast tonight.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.